Thanks for attending our Global Summit session. We are going to be talking about using automated testing to build reliable, large-scale API servers in the cloud. My name is Regilo de Souza, and this is Gramen at Tontchev. He's the principal quality development engineer here in InterSystems, and we are part of the cloud dev team. We in this presentation are going to share the experience that we had with Iris Fire Accelerator Service and the Health Share Message Transformation Service. We have the link for the Iris Fire Accelerator Service here. If you want to check it out, it's going to be really fun. If you want to play with the Health Share Message Transformation Service, you can go to AWS Marketplace and get your experience. I think it is going to be very interesting. But Gramen, I want to talk to you about an issue that we had in the beginning of the year. In April, to be more exact, we were having our testing and release cycle 4 days. That was not acceptable for us. We want to release value to our customers every day, ideally several times a day. So if I have that long cycle, that's not going to be possible. You did something really exciting. You move us from 4 days to 40 minutes. So I want to understand what you did, and I think that everybody is going to really enjoy what you have done.
Well, solving the challenge of how to add value to your product, deliver the value to the customers, it's a common challenge. And we tried to tackle this by employing available tools. So looking at this graph, as soon as we started using Selenium, which is UI automation, for every test case that is now automated that we didn't have to do manually, that decreased our time spent testing. The second large improvement was when we automated the automation with the CICD Pipeline in GitLab. That allowed us to run the automated tests whenever there's a new commit or whenever there's a new feature or whatever.
Cool.
And that brought us from 4 days to 40 minutes.
Cool. I want to hear a little bit more about that. So what I'm getting is that you don't want humans doing tests. You want to automate everything as most as you can. So let's check how that is working.
Yep. Here's a quick demo of testing a small feature, and it's using Selenium. So when you start it up, Selenium gathers information about what it is that you're trying to test, what browser you want to test in. You can tell it, I want Chrome or Firefox, Edge, whatever. And
not looking very excited up to now.
It builds the series of commands just like a user would be, and it starts executing.
Okay.
And you can tell it, okay, click on this button, and if you see something, then it's good. If you don't see something, that's bad. And this way, all your test cases have value.
Got it. I thought that you were open at browser, but it seems that is the application that is doing everything.
Yeah. And you can have the application open not one browser, but many browsers. So you can take your entire test suite, split it up into 100 different chunks, and have all those pieces run together simultaneously, which is where we got a lot of our time benefit, bringing us from hours to minutes of running these tests.
Okay, but I see that you use in Chrome there. What about if I'm using Internet Explorer or Safari or anything like this?
The nice thing about using Selenium is when you write the test case once, then you can run the exact same test case on all browsers. And it requires almost no additional effort on the QD team.
Okay, cool. So sounds like that I can automate this test in all the browsers that I want. And what about if I started building a lot of features? That is going to increase a lot of time, and then we are going to be back to the 4 days that we had in the beginning of April.
Yeah, that's a common challenge. Depending on the dependency between the test cases, you should be able to spin up a separate process to run just one test case. So if you have 1,000 test cases and 1,000 processes, you can complete your entire test cycle in the time it takes to do one test case. So as your amount of testing required scales, you can scale your QD machines to handle more of this type of testing in parallel.
Okay, great. So seems like that I can start continue developing more and more features, and that's not going to add a lot of time on that. Of course, there is some dependencies is going to increase a little bit, but overall, the experience that we have today is going to be the same.
Yes.
Excellent. But one thing that I always hear you complaining is about data. You need data for doing tests, and we use a lot of HO7 V2, we use a lot of Fire resources, and it seems that you have a solution for that as well.
Yes. You cannot automate testing unless you have sufficient and a large variety and quantity of test data. We've been using Cynthia data to generate different data sets depending on whatever the test requires. For example, we've taken Cynthia Fire and made HL7 messages out of it, or we've taken CCDAs and converted them to Fire. And more importantly, because it's an open source project, we've been able to add features such as the HL7 converter or sending REST calls instead of generating flat files. And all of these things have helped us improve our test methodology.
So recently I was in a hackathon, and a lot of people were requesting data for a specific use case. Let's say that women health. So can we do something with Cynthia that can meet these needs?
Yes, whenever you need a specific type of health data, in Cynthia there's a variety of ways you can request more of this type of data, or you can invent your own diseases, assign the distribution or the prevalence of these in the population, and generate millions of patients worth of data.
Okay, there was another member of our group that was talking about something that you built as well, and it seems that you got a ton up on the Cynthia. We needed to test a lot of people trying to access the Fire Accelerator service, actually thousands of people getting thousands of requests, and it seems that you have a solution for that.
Yes, since we're building large-scale cloud-deployed solutions, we wanted to make sure that our application can handle hundreds, if not millions, of concurrent users. Using Cynthia data and developing our own in-house solution, we're able to simulate any number of active users performing any number of tasks, such as get, put, delete, and we can measure the performance of our application. Just really briefly, what this application does, we call it Firehose because it's able to send
a lot of
data.
water there.
Yeah, it's basically fire hosing your application with clinical data. So, for example, if we have 10,000 users performing 3,000 actions per minute, we can time how long each transaction takes, and at the end, we can say, okay, if our application is hosted on a machine with 32 CPUs, we can go up to 100,000 requests per minute. If we double the number of CPUs, we get only half as much performance. So this way we can better understand where to invest in hardware versus where to invest more time in development in software.
I have to say that Ron really enjoyed that, and the test that he did, getting really large amount of data into the Fire Accelerator service was ridiculous big. So I really appreciate you doing that. But we needed to talk also the other thing that you just mentioned. We have a CICD pipeline, and you want to integrate this data with these tests in our pipeline. So how that works?
Well, you decide what tests to run in order to promote code. So I check something into my local branch, and before it gets merged into the main branch, I want to run some tests, ABC. Then to go from the dev environment to, let's say, stage, you run some other tests.
Okay.
These are all equivalent to steps in a CICD pipeline, and the little video running shows how we set this up for one of our projects, showing what tests get run as you move along the pipeline. The goal being that when you submit any change or when you're trying to add value to your product, unless it breaks something, it gets released automatically into live. And at any point along the CI/CD pipeline, you can set checks to stop and do something manually, or do something that requires human intervention, or different set of tests. But using the GitLab CI/CD pipeline, we were able to complete the rest of the tests that are not UI based, such as running scripts.
Got it. So sounds like that doesn't matter how many features we are going to develop, we can test the entire application consistently, and we are going to be sure that nothing is going to break another feature that was already in place.
That's right. That replaces the much dreaded regression testing that we used to do in Qt 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That would take months sometimes and tie up much larger resources than were usually available.
Yeah, I can tell. In the beginning it was 4 days, and now we are doing positive testing, negative testing, chaos engineering, adding a lot of new features there, and you're still keeping that in a really reasonable amount of time for testing.
Yes.
So just sum it up and everything here. So I guess that we can say that we are going to continue delivering more and more features. That's what we put there in orange. And we are going to continue keeping our testing time in a reasonable amount of time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Cool. Great. Thank you.